My top story is something that's kind of got me bummed out, and social media is raging on it. And that's the news that Frisco ISD has reversed course, changed their mind, and said Karmelo Anthony's now going to be allowed to graduate from high school. Karmelo Anthony, the guy that stabbed another student at the Frisco track meet just last month, hasn't been going to school since then. And I don't know what is in their heart. I don't know what is in their head. But when I go line by line through what happened, through what their stated policies are, comparing them to other situations, trying to get to the bottom of this, I can't find any other reason than they were intimidated by the race hustlers who have been employed by the Karmelo Anthony team. Now, the crazy thing that you thought and I thought and most people thought is your son stabs another kid to death, so you go to a political activist, you go to a racial activist to represent you, and that's who's doing your press conference? Not a lawyer, not the guy who's going to be defending your son in court. I mean, my kid kills someone. What am I going to do? Try and make political hay out of it? This is your instinct? This is your primary focus over here? So I'm just divorced from the mindset. Politics, racial politics, is that important to you? That this is what your reaction is when your son pushes a knife into another child's heart? So I don't know what's going on in their head. Period, point blank, end of story. I guess they just hate white people and America so damn much that they will exploit losing their own kid to life in prison and the death of another kid in order to try and score some political points here to kind of make your case. So if killing a kid at a school event isn't bad enough to prevent you from graduating, what is? So you also remember another big story that happened here locally just a month ago, the kid that shot up Wilmer Hutchins High School. Now, he doesn't get to graduate, but no one even died in that one. He hasn't gone through his full due process. In fact, I think he just technically got indicted this morning. But no one died in that. He doesn't get to graduate. In this situation, someone died. He does get to graduate. How does that make sense? If you kill someone, no, you go ahead and get to graduate. And it's not like you can make the case, well, he did all the work and it's just a formality. Did he do all the work? Because I was under the impression he's no longer attending class and no longer doing the schoolwork. Are they sending him his work? Is he doing it online? Is he taking all the tests? Is he going to be taking his finals from home too? Because if he's not doing the work, then he doesn't deserve to graduate. If he didn't make the grades, he doesn't deserve to graduate. And then a lot of people online are pulling up things that I wasn't aware about. And there's other social media ninjas out there who are looking stuff up. And I just copied and pasted one that, I don't know. I think one smart person wrote this down and a bunch of other people were copying and pasting it or whatever. And I don't know how true this is, so take it with a boulder of salt. But check out this comment under one of the stories. How is Karmelo making the required 90% attendance law in Texas? He was expelled. Districts cannot supersede state law. Are you altering his attendance and exempting him from classes? Now, that's interesting. There's a 90% attendance law in Texas. I don't think that was there when I was a student, or I didn't know about it. But if he runs afoul of that law and he's still allowed to graduate, he's getting special privileges. See, this is the head scratcher for all these people who are whining about equality. I'm sorry, you live in an era of special privileges. Thank you very much. I guess if you're used to special privileges, if you're used to deference, equality probably feels like discrimination. But do you think Karmelo should be allowed to graduate? And the sub question to that is, I assume you think, of course not. Then the question really becomes, why did Frisco ISD cave? Why did they change their mind? 800-288-9227. Because if there's a racial angle to this, I mean, it makes the most sense at this point. As ugly as it is, as much as I wish that wasn't the case, as much as I wish this was being judged colorblind on the merits of the situation, that's not the simplest, most likely conclusion here. And I'm not saying Frisco ISD is racist. I'm saying Frisco ISD, they could be very well just racially indifferent. They don't want the bad PR. They don't want Dominic Alexander and the news and the TV stations and the newspapers all slagging them. They don't want to get protested. They don't want people blocking their parking lot or having rallies or blocking traffic. They don't want people threatening their kids or doxing them or showing up at their house. I think they got intimidated because this is not a logical decision. And so here we have a success. If you wonder why race hustlers exist, this is why. It almost looks like the Karmelo Anthony team, as ugly and unethical as it is actually getting some results from going to a race hustler instead of a lawyer first, from letting a race hustler be the forefront of their PR. It worked. They just cowed Frisco ISD into letting a killer graduate, a killer who didn't complete all of his schoolwork, a killer who didn't get all of his grades, a killer who didn't take his finals, a killer who didn't get 90% of attendance, which by law is required for you to graduate. If your kid missed that much school, would he be allowed to graduate? If your kid just decided to take the last 2 months off of high school and not get 90% graduate attendance, would he be allowed to graduate? No, no, and no. So this kid is getting special privileges. For what? Killing a guy? Well, you can't leave it off there. There are plenty of students out there who have killed while they were in high school, but they didn't get to graduate. So what is it? Is it because you killed a white guy? Or is it because the race hustlers will exploit and dox you and intimidate you and slander you and run you through the mud in the media, and the media is just willing participants? I mean, you should see how they're reporting on this right now. If you go to dallasnews.com, they're not telling you Frisco caves and will allow Karmelo to graduate. Here's the headline: misinformation. Frisco ISD says Karmelo Anthony won't participate in grad ceremony. We don't care if he walks. That's not the point. So you come out here defending them. Oh, look at all these other critics that are getting it wrong and misinformation. Forget the misinformation. What about the real information that he's going to be allowed to graduate? This is sick. This can't keep going on. We can't just keep whistling past grave injustices like this. I mean, how bad does it have to be? How bad do they have to slam your society and your culture and your country? How many kids have to get stabbed before you say, hey, I know it's going to be ugly. I know these people are going to dox you. I know these people are going to say bad things about you, but you have to stand up to them because that's the right thing to do. Karmelo Anthony should not graduate from Frisco. Now, if he goes through court and he's exonerated, I don't know what evidence could come up that would exonerate him. Maybe after that, he can come back and they'll let him graduate or make him do his missed time in school or repeat a semester or get a GED or something. But under the circumstances as they stand right now, they just caved. And I can't understand why. And I'm going to ask the impossible question to my next guest, Chris Putnam, CEO of Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. Explain this one to me, Chris, and we're applauding for Chris, not for the story here. What is going on in their head? For me, the most logical explanation is they were intimidated by Dominic Alexander and the Race Hustler crew and the Karmelo Anthony defense team. Am I wrong?
I mean, I don't think there's another explanation. It's really kind of sad that this still goes on. You know, like there's a lot of media outlets, we're included in that have really tried to keep any sort of racial element out of this story because, I mean, I don't believe there is one. But this family and this, as you pointed out, race hustler, race pimp, is desperately trying to create one. And it's disgusting. It's the exact thing that polarizes us as a society, and it's not right. And I can't explain why the school district is capitulating. It makes absolutely no sense to me. As you pointed out, if he had done the work, that's one thing. But he hasn't. He hasn't been in classes in a month and a half. He hasn't taken finals. Should he be entitled to do that? Sure. And if he does, okay. But he hasn't. And so it's nothing short of capitulation to the old cancel crowd. And, you know, I really was hopeful that we were getting past some of that.
Well, one of the reasons why I feel like there's a gap of information here in my understanding of this is because there is a gap of information. Frisco ISD says, well, we don't comment on student disciplinary issues like this.
Which is ridiculous. They can if they want to, as you know.
Of course. But anything they say is either going to make me mad or make the race hustlers mad.
Yeah. You know, I don't know what to say. Like I said, it's just disappointing all around.
Well, Chris, I also try and put myself in the position of the people of the Frisco ISD, whoever made this decision, board of trustees or whatever, whoever was voting on this and making the final decision. You know, they have to worry about, is my family going to get doxxed? Are my kids going to be put on blast? Are protesters going to show up at my house? Am I going to have my name mentioned at a press conference by Dominic Alexander?
James, I was an elected official. and I ran a huge race for Congress. And people say things about you that are mean and that aren't true. And when you decide to enter public life, that's just part of the bargain. What we need from people in elected positions like school board trustees are people with courage who will say, this is not right, this is wrong, and we don't accept it. You know, Grapevine Colleyville ISD had a situation a couple of years ago where they had this insane, like, BLM principal, Dr. We called him Dr. Wokefield. I think his name was Dr. Wakefield. The dude is literally holding, like, BLM protests on campus. They're like, no, this isn't who we are. We're not doing this. And, of course, there was a lot of backlash, and everybody's called a racist. But I always tell people, like, if you aren't one, why does it matter? Let them call you what you want, what they want, right? And, like, this is one of those situations that I hate that race has been injected to it because it didn't need to be. The family, as you know, of the victim doesn't want race injected into this discussion. And yet that's the only card this family and this idiot who's a criminal, the spokesman, is Dominique Alexander, that's the only card they're playing.
Well, yeah, but I kind of caution myself from criticizing them because after this decision, it looks like they were smart to take the racial angle. This is how they got out of it. This is the only thing that makes this different than so many other cases. Like you look at the shooting that happened at Wilmer Hutchins last month. No one even died in that, and that kid doesn't get allowed to graduate. Why? Not a racial angle. His family didn't hire race hustlers to go have a press conference. They're not throwing around the card. And it worked. Yeah, well, Karmelo Anthony's team, it worked. The race card worked.
Again, that's what's sad about it. And it takes courage from these elected officials and people in leadership in that community to step up and say, look, we're not playing this game. It's a false game. It's a fake news game. You know, we're not going to get sucked into this, you know, racial divisiveness because it's not part of this story. It's not, it's just not. And again, the family is not allowing that. I mean, the father has gone to incredible lengths to keep, you know, the racial element, the fact that a black kid stabbed a white kid, out of the story. To the point he's been criticized by conservative groups or some maybe far-right conservative groups about doing so because he won't call out the fact that the family's exploiting that. But, I mean, look, they lost a kid, you know? And, like, he didn't. At the end of the day, he didn't do the work, period. And so he shouldn't be allowed to graduate.
Totally agree.
And they're celebrating it. They're celebrating it. That's what's disgusting.
All right, this stuff breaks my heart. Chris Putnam, I'm about out of time here, but you have a fantastic website. I love what you do over at Dallas Express. Keep up the good work. Y'all find him at DallasExpress.com. And it was good seeing you last night, by the way. Just we don't have to pretend like we're not friends.
No, you're doing great work. We appreciate you so much.
This is Matthew in Dallas. Should Karmelo be allowed to graduate?
My question is he going to be able to walk across the stage?
No.
Okay. What about then the dead kid? Are they going to do something like maybe a ceremony, maybe let his dad walk across, or would that cause too much of a stir?
I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think the dad probably or the mom, anyone wants to do that. He didn't graduate. He didn't finish. I mean, it'd be a nice, like when I was in school, we had a kid die and we left a chair empty at graduation. That was it. When my cousin died, they left a chair empty at his graduation. So, I mean, that's kind of what I expect. But parents, I didn't see him. My aunt didn't get to walk the stage when my cousin died. And there was the guy that died in my grade. No one walked the stage for that. But, I mean, what's your explanation?
I got one more question.
Well, I got a question for you, Matthew.
Yes, sir.
What is Frisco ISD thinking when they changed their mind and decided to allow Karmelo Anthony to graduate? What do you think their reasoning is for that?
It's all racist. It's racism.
Well, look, no. Hang on.
Scared to be called a racist.
There you go. Okay. Because I don't think Frisco ISD is racist. I don't think the people that made the decision of racist. I think they're just cowards of being accused of that.
He's going to go to jail? What, you think he's going to go to jail?
Oh, hell yes, he's going to go to jail.
You think so?
Yeah.
God, I hope so, man. I hope it's not going to be like the glove, that one guy.
You mean OJ?
Yep.
Okay, well, there wasn't eyewitnesses to OJ. Look, here's what I think we're all going to have a little finality on whether or not we have our minds made up. Is there still a video out there that you haven't seen and I haven't seen, most of us hadn't seen. So whenever that comes out, it should just confirm what we've all suspected here. But in the meantime, there's no other explanation. There's no like, well, he got the grades, or he's been doing his work from home, or he's been going to this alternative school, or he's been homeschooling, or he's been doing online schooling, or he's not doing the work. So it's not like he earned it. It's not like he, got stage 4 leukemia and couldn't finish it, and they're doing this out of, some grace here. Because what's not in question is he stabbed another kid in the heart and the guy died. So whether or not it was self-defense is minimal compared to whether or not he should be allowed to graduate. Of course he shouldn't be allowed to graduate, Matthew. Anyway, your second question?
Okay, now if there's a video out there, how did they let him out of the jail then?
Bond. They let him out on bond.
Okay, why did the judge lower it then?
I don't get too exercised about that because I believe that for this last few months of freedom, he's exchanging the rest of his life. And in the grander scheme of things, we need to have a bond system in case, for some of these people who do get arrested and charged and they're innocent. It's worth it to let this guy walk a little bit longer as long as we can keep the bail system for innocent people.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Well, perfect, man. All right, James.
Thank you, Matthew in Dallas. So Jeff Metcalf, the dad, he posted on social media about 50 minutes before the James show started. He said, I just got turned away from Frisco ISD by security for asking to speak with the superintendent. So I made an appointment for Monday at 8:30 a.m. That's the first appointment they had open. I offered to wait all day today for 15 minutes of his time, but he was unable to spare any time for me. So I'll see you on Monday. Online, we have some fantastic sleuths out there who dug up an email. And this comes from the account Sarah Fields. She's been on the James show a couple times. She was the one that was mentioned by Dominic Alexander, the blacktivist that the Karmelo Anthony team had do the press conference. Remember when he called out the tweets and he was holding up some stuff that was printed out? It was tweets from this girl, Sarah Fields. Well, she posted what looks to be an email from the mom of Austin Metcalf to Frisco ISD. Now, check out this chain of communication. This is, if you're not mad already, this will do it. Now, this was Thursday, April 17th. This was almost a month ago. To the leaders of Frisco ISD. Metcalf family concern, please read importance. Hi. Hello, board members. My name is Megan Metcalf. My son, Austin Metcalf, was tragically taken away from me on April 2nd, 2025 from another Frisco student. I've been informed the civil rights team that this person has behind him are reaching out to you requesting he be able to graduate. I do not know much about your stance on protest, etc., but I would urge you to make sure that you do not change your mind on this ruling, that the boy is expelled and it stays that way. My son, Austin, will never be able to graduate. This person will have the opportunity to get his GED at a later time because he is still living. I would strongly request that you do not allow them to sway your ruling and keep him from being able to graduate from the Frisco ISD schools we hold so dear. She didn't get a response on that. So yesterday, Tuesday, May 13th, 11:56 a.m. Subject, why is there no response to me? Someone needs to respond to me. This is unacceptable. And then yesterday, around lunch, she did get an email back from a guy at Frisco ISD. Ms. Metcalf, I apologize for the lack of response due to student privacy laws. We cannot comment on any individual student. We can provide the following information. When Frisco ISD is notified a student has been arrested or charged with a serious felony, the district reviews the situation, decides whether disciplinary action is appropriate. If a disciplinary recommendation is made, the students and their parents are notified. If the recommendation is expulsion, the student's not allowed on any Frisco property while and it sounds like he just copied and pasted this from the handbook. In the cases where student completed all graduation requirements facing expulsion, Frisco ISD typically gives the option of early graduation instead of placement at the Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program. By law, once a student meets graduation requirements, whether at home or JJAEP, they're eligible to receive a diploma. However, students who are expelled or who choose early graduation instead of attending the JJAEP are not allowed on Frisco ISD property during that time, respectfully. And then the name of the guy. Megan writes back yesterday afternoon, the mom, Never would I have imagined a response like this, not even a condolences. If any of you had a heart, the fact you can't even acknowledge my loss is telling of this board. I look forward to seeing how you handle this situation. Cowards, whoever made this decision up in Frisco ISD, you wanted to avoid getting criticized by the civil rights team from the Karmelo Anthony team. You're going to get it here then. You're cowards. You're gutless. You're making the wrong decision because you're scared. Because you're scared of being called ugly words. And I know this isn't scary. You'd rather be called a coward than a racist. I get it. Doesn't mean you're not a coward. My next guest, local watchdog Dallas in Fuego. Welcome back to the James Show. First off, before we get into the local runoff discussion here, your thoughts on Frisco ISD changing course. Why would they do this?
You know, I'm really disgusted by it. It says to me that they're just trying to make a statement, and their statement is they're going to side with a killer, and this should be a wake-up call to anybody that has their kids in that school. Take them out immediately. Stop sending your kids to public schools.
You know what? I was trying to think, what would I do if my kid was graduating from Frisco? Would we just skip the graduation? Oh, we'll take the diploma, but in order to have, some sort of public demonstration that we do not approve of what you're doing, we'll skip the ceremony. But I mean, do you take that away from your kid? Does your kid have to miss their own high school graduation over this political stuff? And that back and forth, we got to put our foot down somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if your kids are already going to that school, let them graduate, but for anybody who has kids that are going into the school, just homeschool, do anything else. We have to put a stop to this. This is becoming too common, this kind of behavior.
Well, I think the most disheartening part about this is they injected the race card. They went and got a political activist, a racial activist, and it worked. It actually, being this unethical and playing the race card actually worked.
Yep. Yeah, it does. It does a lot of times. Yeah, that's why they keep doing it.
All right, well, let's go into your field of expertise. We have some runoff elections. I know we just had everyone go vote, just it feels like a few days ago. But for many decisions, the final vote hasn't been cast. Is there anything special or top headline that we need to know about in the runoffs?
Yeah, for anybody that lives in North Dallas, District 11, that's Preston Hollow, that's north of LBJ. This is a really, really important runoff election between Jeff Kittner and Bill Roth. And honestly, it's patently obvious that Bill Roth is the best candidate here because he's common sense, wants to get rid of the homeless, he wants to lower the debt, he wants to address the police pension crisis. He's endorsed by the Dallas Police and Dallas Fire Associations, which is a really big deal. And, Jeff Kittner is a carbon copy of his predecessors. It's kind of like if you've ever seen that movie Multiplicity with Michael Keaton. Have you seen that?
I remember seeing the cover for it in Blockbuster, yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene where they make a copy of a copy, and he comes out kind of special needs. That's Jeff Kittner in this race, right? He's just like the other guys, but he's going to be, in my opinion, worse. So vote for Bill Roth in the District 11 runoff. Very, very good guy, very smart businessman. He's the kind of common sense that we need to have at the Horseshoe downtown at City Hall.
Well, look, this isn't the Dallas and Fuego I'm used to. We don't have any good bathhouse stories in the runoff elections.
Well, the big thing really is just that I've been hitting Jeff Kittner, the opponent, pretty hard on my social media, on X and on YouTube, making videos about this guy, trying to get the word out about the fact that this guy is a lobbyist for big business in the city of Dallas. He's the COO of the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce, and he is going to be running and keeping his job if he gets elected. So he's going to have a major conflict of interest with a lot of city business. If DART wants to raise their rates or if Atmos wants to raise their rates on utilities, he can't vote on that stuff. He would have to recuse himself. And that's just one example. There's a plethora of them.
All right. Well, Dallas and Fuego, I wish I had more time with you today, but I got to keep it moving. You do great work online. Y'all find Dallas and Fuego, especially if you're in the city limits of Dallas. He covers a lot of this local stuff, and there's not a whole lot of other outlets that are going to give his perspective on it. So I really appreciate your time, Dallas.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and I follow him on X. I think he's got a pretty big following on Instagram, too, if that's your jam. Dallas in Fuego, E-N Fuego. All right, I got some good calls coming up next. Answering the question, should Karmelo Anthony be allowed to graduate? What do you think? 800-288-9227. Of course, my answer is hell no. But I'd like to hear from you as well. We'll continue with this coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.
At work or at home, get breaking news, traffic, weather, and business information on our free app. WBAP streaming powered by InvestYRefi.com. That's invest, the letter Y, REFY.com.
Listen, if you're losing your hair and you want a simple solution that's guaranteed to work, guys, you need Advanced Hair. Top-rated physicians, modern technology, and your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day, guaranteed. And if you do schedule your free consultation, you get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. 469-599-HAIR or advancedhair.com.